This is Special Chronicles, giving respect and a voice to people with special needs.
I shudder thinking how the world can be so cruel. I lend my voice to those who can't. It's time we try, it's time we care, it's time we stand. It starts with a voice.
Welcome to the Special Chronicles show. This is episode 522. My name is Daniel Smrokowski, and I'm the founder of Special Chronicles and a Special Olympics Southern Survival International Global Messenger. Our website, specialchronicles.com. That's specialchronicles.com, where you can stream our archives of over 730 episodes absolutely for free. And follow Special Chronicles on social media, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere you listen to your podcast. This week on the Special Chronicles podcast, we're on the road to Special Olympics World Games Berlin 2023 with Joshua Powell, a college-educated single, an athlete coach, global messenger, competing in unified bowling with his father on the Special Olympics USA delegation. Please put your virtual hands together as we welcome Joshua to the Special Chronicles show. Welcome, Joshua. Welcome, Joshua.
Hey, Daniel. How are you doing today?
Good. Good to have you on the program. And we, well, I guess let's begin on the show and share with our listeners kind of, I guess, how we first got connected and how we met up. We were guests a couple months ago on the Special Olympics International's global webinar, where I hosted a panel and you sang, which for those of you just tuning in right now and just meeting Josh for the first time, stay tuned to the very end of this episode, very end, because Josh will perform that song that he sang on the global webinar at the end for all of you listeners and viewers. And so begin, I guess, kind of in your own words, share with the listeners how we first got connected and what disability you were diagnosed with.
All right. So Daniel and I first got connected through the Special Olympics webinar, and this is a webinar that happens, I think it's once a month.
Yes. Yeah, I think it is every month. Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, it's where several people just from all over the world in Special Olympics organizations talk about the different work that they're doing in each of their countries, and it's a wonderful time of being able to really see how Special Olympics is spreading out just all across the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And can you share with us what disability you were diagnosed with? I know a lot of times in our Special Olympics movement, we don't really put the disability label. Like I know, like for myself and a lot of other athletes like yourself, we don't there's a lot of labels that are put on us, but we don't really let the labels define us. But I guess as one of my journalism professors said that like all disability it's the beginning part of our story. It doesn't define our story, but it's the beginning part of our story. And so and I say that to say we've got kind of a big announcement at Special Chronicles coming later this year that has to do with how I just said disability is the beginning part of our story, has to do with this new phrase and this new thing that we are going to be launching later this year at Special Chronicles. But I say that to say, can you tell us a little bit about what disability you were diagnosed with?
Yeah. So I was diagnosed, my primary disability is cerebral palsy, and I also have a mild intellectual disability. So as you say, Daniel, it's not our label. It is the beginning of our story, mm-hmm. But at the same time, it also has a little bit of influence into how lives are lived, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. So it starts off as a disability, and it starts off as what people will say that you could probably do. But for me, my disabilities have granted me my most amazing opportunities in life, and it's become more than disability. It's become a ministry. Awesome.
Yeah, I love that. How, like you said, our disability is the beginning of our story, but it's become a way of life. Just like that, we're trying to, in our inclusion revolution, and I'm sure we'll get to this at the end of the episode. But the inclusion revolution is we're trying to make inclusion a way of life, just like our disability, our intellectual disabilities that will all these labels that we have. That's the beginning part of the story. We'll letting society know that it's just a way of life. So we'll get into much more of your Special Olympics story. We'll go on the road to the world's largest inclusive sports event, the World Games in Berlin, on this episode. Our guest is Joshua Powell, Special Olympics USA bowling athlete, and we will hear much more of Joshua's story right here on the Special Chronicles show as we go on the road to Berlin 2023 right here on specialchronicles.com. We will be right back. Support for Special Chronicles comes from listeners like you. As an independent public media podcast, Special Chronicles will always be there for you. Now we're asking you to be there for us. As a non-profit independent media organization, we can only make programs like Special Chronicles with listener support. Our programs provide weekly, candid, honest, and inspiring conversations about the people with disabilities community that creates awareness, support, and advocacy within each week's episode. Listeners tell us our shows are an enjoyable and necessary podcast for the intellectual and developmental disability community and everyone else who is able to listen to stories about life from a different angle. Please, if you and your family love our weekly podcasts, make a one-time, monthly, or annual gift of thanks today. Support this podcast at specialchronicles.com/give. That's specialchronicles.com/give. Our guest is Joshua Powell, Special Olympics USA athlete, as we go on the road to Berlin 2023. And so, Josh, you kind of building on that introduction, can you take us back to even before you got involved in Special Olympics, but more than 30 years ago? Can you take us back to your early years? And you tell us about your challenges, but also some of the joys and accomplishments because of your disability.
Okay. So 30 years ago, I was 8 years old and in elementary school. That's when I was still going through many different kinds of therapy. I was going through speech, physical, occupational, just various types of therapy. And I definitely had more physical challenges at that time. But by God's grace, there's been a lot of things in my life that have led me to being able to be as physically active as most people. I still have issues, but who doesn't?
Awesome. You can go ahead.
Okay. So, and we can edit this part out, but just so you know, you are breaking up every now and then.
Oh, I am. Oh, okay. Yeah. So it sounds good for me, but okay. All right.
Okay. So your question is
about your early challenges and joys and accomplishments because of your disability.
Okay. Well, as my parents said it the other day, I was just your normal average kid, and I just wanted to fit along. So I think one of my greatest challenges, and this actually is kind of a joy too now that I look back at it, is when I was in elementary school, I was asked to do a speech in front of my class. And I actually remember part of it, but it was just discussing the fact that I have a disability and that it makes me a little bit different, but it's just part of who I am. And it was giving the other kids in the classroom the idea that I'm just like them. I'm just a little bit different.
Awesome. Well, now if we kind of fast forward from your early years to when you first got involved in Special Olympics, can you share with us how you first got involved in as an athlete in Special Olympics movement? I think you had mentioned, well, I know this from our pre-show planning meeting that we had about a week ago, but can you show us about 30 years ago? I think you said you started in Denver, Colorado, and then in the past 10 years you've been in South Carolina. But can you tell us about how you first got involved in our Special Olympics movement?
Yes. So my parents, I believe, were contacted by the school district, and they were given various options about different things I could do just as a regular after school thing. Mm-hmm. And Special Olympics was one of those that just hit them, and they thought it would be a great idea. So they put me in that, and that's really kind of what started me seeing what good things I could do. So I remember one of my first swim practices. So I started off as a swimmer in Special Olympics. Mm-hmm. And I remember the coach saying that I swam like a fish. So basically ever since then, I love swimming, and I currently do swimming in Special Olympics as well.
Awesome. I also started out swimming as well. I'm currently taking a break from swimming to just do basketball now. But I also swimming is just like what you just shared. Swimming is how I got my start in Special Olympics as well. So in addition to swimming, can you tell us about some of the other sports that you participated?
Yeah. For most of my younger years, I did track and field, and I did a number of events. So back in Colorado, we have a very dry climate, and I got to do the 1,500 meter walk, which is very close to being a mile. Mm-hmm. And doing that under the Colorado sun, where there's a lot of heat and not much wind, it got really hot. One of my favorite memories from that is after the end of one of my races, one of my nephews came down and he gave me a hug as soon as I crossed that finish line. And then I lied down on the grass because I was tired. Awesome. And then you obviously also compete in bowling. And I'm going to try to put a link to this video that you shared with me that's on the Special Olympics USA's YouTube channel. Because, in preparing for the show, I watched that. I think it's like a 3-minute clip. I think 3 minutes. It's a very short video, but I will put so for folks, if you're just listening to this, so go to the show notes for this episode, specialchronicles.com/podcast522, or just look in the description below, and you can find the link for the show notes for this episode. And it looks like we just lost Josh, but I will include a link to the show notes to the video that Josh is in. And there we go. We are going to bring Josh back on. There we go. So Josh, I was just saying, I'm going to include a link to the video that you were in, that you shared with me. But and because I found that video that featured you for Special Olympics USA
I've got stuff dropping in the studio here. I've got sticky notes flying all over the place. I've got these cheat sheets that are dropping. Anyways, okay. So with that, that's what you get for when you try to prop stuff up. That video was just a great kind of introduction to you, and so we'll and when this episode drops, I will on our Special Chronicles Instagram and Facebook. I'll try to also share that video again. So folks, if you guys are just again specialchronicles.com for links to follow us on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, and I'll include that video. But Josh, you shared in that video, in addition to the sports that you talked about that you participate in, you also participate in bowling. And I really loved how you talked about the way that you got involved in bowling, and in particular unified bowling, is because of your parents' involvement in a bowling league. Can you recap that? Because I think it speaks to why you are going to Berlin in bowling, but it also speaks to the power, the impact of unified bowling and the impact of unified sports. When you've got your parents that love the sport of bowling, they brought you in, and it speaks to that power of when we talk about the world's largest inclusive sports event. And so here's a family that loves the sport of bowling. Can you kind of recap that story for our listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, from the time that I was born, and probably even before that, my parents and my siblings had been bowling on bowling leagues. And so due to that, I got to go with my parents to the bowling alley every time that they bowled. And I spent much of my earlier years in the bowling alley nursery. So I literally grew up in a bowling alley. But of course, I wasn't at the age where I could be on the bowling league.
Yeah.
And now that I get the opportunity to bowl with my dad, who's been doing it for much of his life, and just the fact that I'm able to do this at a later part of his life and kind of middle part of mine, just means so much to me that I'm able to do that with him.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that part because and it also, in addition to highlights you and your father's and your family's love of bowling, and in addition to highlighting the impact and power of unified sports in our movement, it also speaks to the impact and power of families and our family involvement in this movement. So yeah, I just, when I watched that part of your story, there was a lot of connections and impacts of different parts of this movement, from family to unified sports to just a family's love of a particular sport like bowling. Switching gears now to a little bit of athlete leadership. As you know, in this movement, which started as a movement for us athletes by our founder, Eunice Kennedy Shriver, has now developed into an athlete that's led by us athletes. And so our athlete leadership, in addition to sports being the foundation of what this movement is built on, our athlete leadership, health and education programs, but in particular that talking about athlete leadership. And I know that there's a lot of athlete leadership involvement in these World Games in Berlin. Like I was on a team with some other athlete leaders to help to name the mascot. I was on another team of athlete leaders to help to get feedback about the app. So the mobile app that's soon in about from the time you guys hear this, in about a month and a half. So just before the games, you'll be able to download a mobile app on your iPhone or Android device. And it was a team of us athlete leaders that got on, I think, a 2-hour Zoom call to give feedback, and they'll actually, I can't mention anything that's going to be on the app right now, but from the time that we'll be quoting this, by the time this episode airs. But what I can say is the organizing committee in Berlin, just like a Special Olympics International or local programs, listen to us athlete leaders. So this is really a movement that is now led by us athlete leaders. So with that, you are an athlete coach, you're a global messenger, you're a college-educated single. There's all these different leadership roles that you have. Can you share with us how you got involved in the athlete leadership programs?
Yeah. So really, being a leader in something like Special Olympics, it might sometimes take formal training, but really the first step into that is just showing the idea of leadership. So being a leader is just trying to figure out how you can help others and making sure that anything that you ask other people to do, you're not unwilling to do yourself. So for me, it was just a matter of helping people out, and that's what got me stepping into the Global Messenger program, into being a coach. And that's one thing I love about my Special Olympics swim team, especially, which is where I'm a coach at. And I love coaching from the sidelines, but I love coaching from the pool because I'm able to be in there at the same time as the athletes, and I'm able to work with them even more than the coaches on the sidelines are. Yeah. Not just from a physical standpoint, but also from the same mental standpoint, because I live kind of in the same life that they do. Yeah. So being able to help using my same experiences and just kind of being a mentor in various ways.
Awesome. I love those two things that you had mentioned, how you're able to mentor other athletes, but also kind of live the same experiences or similar experiences as the athletes that you coach. And I think and hopefully there's a lot of people in this movement that are listening to this episode right now that hears that one, I love your answers, that you spoke to the power of being a leader, the power of athlete leadership, that deals with what being a leader in this movement is all about. You spoke to the impact of mentoring other athletes and drawing on those similar experiences that our fellow athletes have. And that all speaks to, all that kind of tied together speaks to the impact of athlete leadership. And that I loved what you said. I'll probably send a clip to that to my mentor and some of our staff, because the way that you explain that is just perfect. To wrap up this segment, I'm sure there's a lot of favorite parts of this movement, but from the sports to the athlete leadership to now being able to travel to the upcoming World Games in Berlin, what's your favorite part of our Special Olympics movement?
My favorite part is that the story never ends. So I started out as being an athlete, but it didn't end there. It went on from that to being able to go overseas in China and the Philippines, to being a music teacher at a special needs school, to singing the national anthem for a U.S. ambassador, and even coming to college in Greenville, South Carolina, and being able to lead special needs programs, Special Olympics, and just all of that. It continues to open up opportunities, and as long as I'm alive, I don't count on those opportunities ever ending. Just every day, a new opportunity opens.
Awesome. Well, speaking of how I loved what you how you answered that as well. Speaking to how the story never ends, a couple of parts of your story of how you were a music teacher overseas, you're a college-educated single. These parts, because there's not that many of us. For one, there's not that many of us Special Olympics athletes that have graduated college, like yourself and myself. There's a few others, but so there's that kind of college part of your story, and then being a music teacher overseas at a special needs school. Those parts of your story, how your story never ends in this Special Olympics movement, that's going to kind of tie in with, at the end of this episode, into that we're going to leave our listeners on a cliffhanger that I think we'll have to have you back on for a part 2 of your story in this, I think, August or recorded in August, September-ish timeframe, that it speaks to how your story never ends. So for those listening, if you're just listening to this right now, hit that follow button or keep following the Special Chronicles podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts, because you want to stay subscribed to keep listening to Josh's story when we bring them back on. But with that, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, Josh, we will get into our road to Berlin. We will go on the road to Berlin, to the world's largest inclusive sports event happening in Berlin, Germany, this 17th to the 25th June 2023. It just probably, in the break, I'm going to look at the website Berlin 2023 and look at how many days left. And again, it's how many days since the time that we're recording this. But we'll be right back right here on SpecialChronicles.com. Support for Special Chronicles comes from ComEd. Special Chronicles is proud to partner with the ComEd Energy Force Ambassador Program. The Energy Force is the country's first energy efficiency education program designed for and taught by people with disabilities. ComEd is powering lives, and Wary is powering us here at Special Chronicles to keep the lights on and our technology is powered on. As ComEd powers the lives of us, they are literally giving a voice to people with special needs. We thank ComEd for the generous support of our mission at Special Chronicles. Learn more at specialchronicles.com/ComEd. That's specialchronicles.com/ComEd. Support for Special Chronicles comes from United Airlines Bridge Disability Business Resource Group. Special Chronicles is proud to partner with United Airlines and the Bridge BLG. Bridge BLG is committed to being an ally for all employees and customers with disabilities. Bridge helps to create internal awareness to keep accessibility needs in mind and partner with key organizations to empower disability inclusion for employment and travel. Bridge, connecting people of all abilities. Book your travel today on United.com or on the award-winning United app. Learn more on United's commitment to disability inclusion for employment and travel at specialchronicles.com/United. That's specialchronicles.com/United. Our guest is Joshua Powell, competing in unified bowling as a part of the Special Olympics USA delegation at the upcoming 2023 World Games in Berlin, the 17th to the 25th of June. And during that sponsor break, I looked it up. We are recording this on the 27th of March. This episode will air in the middle of April. So at the time we're recording this, 81 days. So by the time our listeners hear this, it will be less than 80 days, maybe 70-something days left until that the World Games will open in Berlin. Josh will be there. I'll be there. 7 other athletes will be there. Globally from 195 countries. The world's largest inclusive sports event. So with that, Josh, can you share with us how you first got selected to be part of Special Olympics USA at the upcoming World Games in Berlin this June? Can you tell us of when you kind of take our listeners back to when you heard that you were going to be competing at the World Games?
Absolutely. So I went downstairs, and I was actually about to go to work, and my mom was sitting in one of her favorite chairs, and she told me that my dad had been contacted by the Special Olympics office, and we were nominated to go to the Special Olympics World Games trials in Texas. I don't think I've ever been in more shock. My mouth was just fully gaped open, and I couldn't even reply for a minute or so. But that was so huge to me. It's actually interesting how we were chosen. There was a couple of guys who had been chosen for the team before me and my dad, and apparently they couldn't go. So our Special Olympics Greenville, South Carolina office was contacted, and they were asked if there was a couple of guys that they would want to send over to the World Games, and my dad and I were chosen.
Awesome.
And that's such an amazing feeling to be part of that.
Awesome. And you had said that, so you and your father went to the trials for USA delegation in Texas. Is that, just for our listeners to, I guess, better understand, is that different than the training camp? And then I guess that will lead into telling us all about the Special Olympics USA training camp experience. But I guess first, is the going to Texas for the trials, is that different than the training camp, or is that the same kind of training camp, trials? Is that all kind of, I guess, the same weekend that you were there? Trials and training camp all the same? So
yeah, absolutely. So yes, that is all part of the same thing. So the trials, it's such an interesting word. But trials specifically is just to see how athletes handle traveling out from their home state to another place. So going from their home state to Texas would have been much easier than traveling from their home state all the way out to Germany.
Yeah.
So it was just trying to make sure that the athletes would be okay with leaving their families for such and such a time, and spending most of their time, if not all their time, with their team.
Awesome. And can you tell us a little bit about the training camp experience in Texas? I think it was in, I'm trying to remember from our last guest, it was it around Houston? No, Houston? San Antonio. San Antonio, that's right. One of those cities. One of those. Yeah, can you tell us when you traveled to San Antonio for the training camp or trials, kind of both, I guess, two words meaning the same thing. Can you tell us about what the training camp experience was like?
Yeah. So, as an athlete yourself, you know how much practice goes into something before a competition. Yeah. And this was basically a day's practice on steroids. So all the various teams, so swimming, bicycling, kayaking, bowling, things like that, we would spend basically the whole day just practicing. Mm-hmm. And we did that for a total of 2 days, which was, for bowling, it was definitely tiring on my arms, if not everything else. But it was fun. It was so much fun getting able to bowl, not just with my dad, but with people that are part of our team. And and these are people not just from South Carolina. These are people from Denver, from Mississippi, and just all kinds of different states. And being able to join our slightly bigger family, but not as many people, but bigger meet just from so many states, and just being able to see how much of a world we are, and as much of a family we are, just within Special Olympics. We don't have to be from the same blood family. We don't even have to be from the same state. We are a unified people together.
Awesome. I love that. And that kind of how you said that we are a unified people, and which our listeners will kind of hear kind of two phrases that I believe that you came up with in that video that it will kind of tie in to the end of the episode. Dream, manifest, and unified people. That will it will leave our listeners on a cliffhanger for part 2 of having you on this podcast. But as we now kind of move into, we are less than 80 days, maybe even less than, still at 70 days from the time people hear this, from the opening of the upcoming Special Olympics World Games, Berlin 2023. Can you tell us what you're looking forward to at, again, this is the world's largest inclusive sports event. Can you share with us, is it meeting other people? Is it the food, the culture? Is it, what are you most looking forward to when we travel to Berlin?
I am such a people person. And for most of my adult life, I've wanted to go to so many places. I want to work with Special Olympics. That's where my life is. And Special Olympics is the people. So being able to go to this event and meeting people with different languages, different cultures, things like that, being able to find our commonality together. And that in a world that we live in, where there's so much strife, there's so much angst against other people, and Special Olympics is just not that way.
Yeah.
We are we are a different world inside of ourselves, and we are able to find that friendship that's just, it crosses the world. And being able to spend time with people in that kind of love is just going to be an amazing couple of weeks being able to do that.
Awesome. I love what you said, that how when people come into this movement, they come into our Special Olympics movement, it's a different world. That kind of speaks to, and I can't talk about this totally yet right now because it hasn't really been released yet, but I'm an advisor on this documentary film that follows our USA triathlon team that went to the Abu Dhabi World Games. And it really speaks to, it follows 3 athletes. It speaks to not only competing on the global stage, but it speaks to the stories of us athletes, of what happens when we go back to our regular lives. And I think, I love that what you said there, and kind of building upon that, on the impact, whether it's with inclusion, whether it's I'm sure we might be mentioning your taglines a few times on this episode, but they're so powerful, of being a unified people. What impact do you hope to make at the world's largest inclusive sports event?
I think the impact that I want to make is the same impact that I want to make just any day. Mm-hmm. My disabilities have given me my greatest opportunities in life. It's given me a different view on life. Mm-hmm. And I want to use that to motivate people to find the best parts of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
We might be, we're all different. There's nothing wrong with that. But by using our differences, we're able to motivate each other, to strengthen each other. And it's my goal to help people to realize that.
Mm-hmm.
There are countries where people with disabilities are looked down upon, and I want to help. I want to help people like that to show that we can help. We can help people in so many ways. It's just a matter of finding that way.
Awesome. Well, I love that, and we could spend more time talking about your story, and maybe when we have you on for a part 2, it will be probably a couple of months post games, and we'll have to have you when we have you back on. We'll have to have you kind of talk a little bit about your experience of actually being in Berlin, being at the world's largest inclusive sports event. And yeah, I hope that there are some other Special Olympic staff that are listening to this episode and that can really hear your 2 taglines, but in particular how you said to be a unified people. I hope that people can kind of pick up on that. I think that's one of the most powerful messages that you have for our listeners. That when hopefully all of you listening, if you are not yet involved in this movement, you will join us in this movement. The best, as our CEO Mary Davis says, the best movement is the inclusion revolution. The best when people join. You really join Josh and me and the over 6 million athletes across the globe in being a unified people. And with that, we'll go ahead and take our final break. When we come back, we'll get into some social media plugs, final thoughts, final question, and stay tuned to the end as Josh performs a song at the very end of this episode. You do not want to miss that at the very end of this episode. Our guest is Joshua Powell from competing in bowling, unified bowling, as a part of Special Olympics USA at the upcoming World Games in Berlin, and we will be back right here on SpecialChronicles.com. Special Chronicles is hosted by Podbean Podcast Hosting, the easiest, most affordable option to get started in podcasting. At Special Chronicles, we proudly host our weekly podcast with Podbean and highly recommend you use Podbean Podcast Hosting to get started in podcasting today. Sign up for an unlimited hosting plan and get 1 month free now to get started in podcasting today when you visit specialchronicles.com/Podbean. That's specialchronicles.com/Podbean. Our live streams are powered by StreamYard, the easiest way to create professional live streams. StreamYard is a live streaming studio in your browser. Interview guests, share your screen, and much more. Stream directly to Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and other platforms. Sign up for StreamYard today using our StreamYard referral link when you visit specialchronicles.com/StreamYard. That's specialchronicles.com/StreamYard. And we're back. Our guest is Joshua Powell, competing in Special Olympics USA delegation in bowling, unified bowling at our upcoming World Games 2023 in Berlin, this 17th to the 25th of June. So, Josh, can you share with us how our listeners can connect with you on Facebook and YouTube? And for those of you that are driving or walking or can't write it down, if you're watching the video, just click the link in the description below to find the show notes, specialchronicles.com/podcast522, and we'll include links to your Facebook and YouTube. But Josh, do you want to include, let our listeners know how they can connect and follow you on Facebook and YouTube?
Yeah. So I have both a Facebook and a YouTube page. Both are under the names Joshua Powell. And of course, you can find those links in the notes. But on my Facebook page, I always have a multitude of Special Olympics things that I post on there, either about my life or about what's going on, pictures, videos. I love doing live streaming, so if I'm able, when I'm in Germany, I might do some live streaming videos.
Awesome.
And just kind of get our guests included on that. On YouTube, about a year ago, I was putting together a bunch of Christmas stories that I did over audio, and I have those on there. So those are kind of fun listen. I haven't done a lot with Special Olympics on there, but if you want to get included on my life in there, I have a bunch of my stories on there. I have some video game videos, and who doesn't like to watch video game videos in these
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we'll make sure to include those links in the show notes. So you guys, wherever you're listening to this, specialchronicles.com/podcast522. And make sure to follow Josh on YouTube, but also follow him on Facebook, because you want to, I'm sure you guys can follow his journey when he's in Berlin this June 17th to the 25th. As well as if you want to connect with USA delegation, Special Olympics USA.org. You see that if you're watching the video on YouTube, you see the below Josh's name. You see, you can also follow Special Olympics USA on social media, #cheer4USA, and I love, Josh, how you in that on the Special Olympics USA YouTube channel, you kind of sung that. I don't know if you wanted to actually, yeah. First let's know. We'll include a link to where you can download the fact sheet to get more information about Special Olympics USA. And then if you want to volunteer or get tickets or join us in Berlin, be fans in the stands. Or just come and join us on the 17th to the 25th at the world's largest inclusive sports event, Special Olympics World Games Berlin 2023. It is berlin2023.org is where you can go to learn more information. And if you want to connect with your local program, Special Olympics program, specialolympics.org. We'll include all those links in the show notes, specialchronicles.com/podcast522. And Josh, I don't know if again, I know we kind of want to save your singing for the end to kind of wrap up this episode, but I don't know if you want to kind of, you want to kind of you had as a part of that video they got all the athletes to say cheer for USA, but then you had kind of changed it up. Can you kind of let us know kind of your kind of insight to kind of how you wanted to kind of change up that cheer for USA, but in kind of a song.
Absolutely. So the people who interviewed me that day, they had read my story. They knew about my music, and I knew that everybody was doing the cheer for USA, which was awesome.
Yeah.
But I had asked them if they would like me to change that around with some of my music. And this part was actually cut out a little bit, but they said that they were going to ask me to do that anyway. So
awesome.
I love being able to do that. I love singing for anybody.
Yeah, awesome. Well, that's why even like last minute, before we started recording, I asked you to kind of to conclude this episode with you singing. So, before we get to that final question, any final thoughts on your overall time here today on the Special Chronicles show that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Yeah, I want to give credit to my voice teacher that I had at Bob Jones University. His name is Dr. David Parker, and fabulous musician. But he was the one that actually did most of my formal voice training with me. And I remember one of the last messages that I've gotten from him was when I did a national anthem performance for a baseball game for a Special Olympics night here in South Carolina, and he said that it was the way it was meant to be performed. And just hearing that from my voice teacher was huge.
Awesome.
So I just want to credit him for helping me to be be the performer that I am.
Awesome. Well, we got one final question before we conclude with what's coming up next and with you singing. To introduce that final question, we're going to go ahead and roll that
We're not
bubble.
just athletes.
We are the ambassadors of an uprising.
Peaceful protesters.
In a rebellion against anyone
Who has a fear of difference.
Difference.
Our demands are
equality,
dignity, and the recognition of our shared humanity.
We will not stop.
or accept anything less.
Today, our world is
More divided than ever.
And coming together has never been more urgent.
The revolution.
is inclusion.
Find out more at jointherevolution.org.
Ever since I attended the 2019 Special Olympics War Games in Abu Dhabi, for the past 5 years, I've been asking all of our guests one final question, and so I'll do the same with you, Joshua. As you know, inclusion and inclusion revolution is a big message in our Special Olympics movement. Inclusion is also important here at Special Chronicles. And so, and this will be a cliffhanger episode, as we will hopefully have a part 2 to this conversation with you, Joshua. I'm coming in early fall 2023. But you want to? I'll ask you the same, and that is, what does inclusion mean to you?
Inclusion means it's not just one group of people. We are not just one people on this earth. We are several different kinds of people. And by recognizing those differences, we are able to use those and to kind of use them as the paper clips that connect us all together. And through our differences, we're able to include everybody in our lives and create a better type of world in that way.
Awesome. Well, that's a perfect way to wrap up this episode and to leave our listeners on a cliffhanger. Also, want to, in case you missed our most recent episode on this podcast, Special Olympics Chief Education Officer Jackie Jodo, we toned on this podcast to talk about inclusive mindsets. So go listen to last week's episode, as well as Rachel Ketchmark from the Green Power Connect team at ComEd joined us the first week of the month to talk about clean environmental energy in celebration of this month's Earth Day. And also coming up on this upcoming episodes of this Special Chronicles podcast, in celebration of Autism Awareness Month, we conclude the month of April going on the job with Chris Lindsay, a photographer and autism awareness advocate, ramp agent for United Airlines in Chicago, plus a big known guest returns on this podcast to premiere in May 2023. So stay tuned, and please be sure to keep following the Special Chronicles podcast, or tap the follow button on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows, as new episodes drop weekly every Monday. Don't miss our original content that will help you make impactful and inclusive connections in your life on our podcasts. And remember, visit specialchronicles.com. That's specialchronicles.com. Where you can stream our archives of over 730 episodes absolutely for free, and to follow Special Chronicles on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere you listen to your podcast. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you next week right here on specialchronicles.com. And until then, remember, choose to include, and disabled voices matter. And now, as we will wrap up this episode, Joshua will be performing from singer-songwriter Warren Tynan. Name of the song is This Is the Hour. He performed this song at the 2023 World Games in Dublin, Ireland. And now Joshua will be concluding this episode with the song This Is the Hour. Joshua?
People who have guided us, shown us the way, promise to give back to them on this glorious day. We are proud now to say to them, all their work was not in vain. Their patience and their hope for us lead us across the plain. We have strength, we have power, we are brave as we are. We can show the world what we can do when we need to make a stand. We have strength, we have power, we are brave as we are. We can show the world what we can do. We are there at every hand. At the start you instilled in us a dream which we did not understand. But through your love and care for us, we see what you have planned. Standing now as we are one, with work and love and so much fun, we achieve the best that we can do, standing proud in front of every man. We have strength, we have power, we are brave as we are. We can show the world what we can do when we need to make a stand. We have strength, we have power, we are brave as we are. We can show the world what we can do. We are there at every hand. We have strength, we have power, we are brave as we are. We can show the world what we can do when we need to make a stand. We have strength, we have power, we are brave as we are. We can show the world what we can do when we need to make a stand. We can show the world what we can do. We are there at every hand.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Special Chronicles Podcast. Our podcast was produced by Daniel Smrokowski on the Special Chronicles Network. Follow Special Chronicles on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Subscribe, rate, and review Special Chronicles on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Our website, specialchronicles.com, where you can stream our archives of over 500 episodes for free. Also, there's a list of our favorites original series, award-winning columns, and blogs. And sign up for our newsletter to receive exclusive bonus content delivered to your inbox. Again, specialchronicles.com. Special Chronicles is hosted by Podbean Podcast Hosting. Our live streams are powered by StreamYard. Thanks as always to our business manager, Daniel Smrokowski, who always encourages us to never give up. I'm Daniel Smrokowski, back next week with more stories.
Special Chronicles, giving respect and a voice to people with special needs.